A bunch of us were like drinking loads and kind of not taking very good care of ourselves. And it kind of, none of us hit this like kind of rock bottom moment. Like we weren't like complete drunks or anything, but we were certainly just like not doing great at certain points, touring a lot. And then we had a bit of time when we made this record, and we took like a whole year off to make it. You know, I had a kid, so did our drummer. We got married before, not me and my drummer, me and my wife.
Henry, it's great to see you again. We've met before, but backstage Grasp Up 2022, and so much has changed, not just for the band, but for you personally as well. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm doing really good. Life is good right now. My dog is running around being super annoying. I'm gonna just take that ball off him so he doesn't bother us. But yeah, life is great.
Awesome. And you know, as we're recording this, the ramp up to the new album, which is going to come out September 6th, is starting to really happen. You got a lot of PR stuff you have to deal with right now. This is the conclusion of a big story for the band that's been a long time in the making. This is basically the second part of a double album. Do you feel like, okay, we're finally here, or it's been going for so long and it's still a few weeks out that it doesn't feel real yet? Like, what's your state of mind right now?
Yeah, a bit of both, really, all wrapped up together, to be honest. It has been a long time coming. I think we've had the rough mixes of this album for nearly a year now. Mm-hmm. And the project was kind of conceived nearly 4 years ago. So it's felt like what I've been doing with my life for a long time. But I'm so happy with the album. I really, really am. Like, I know it can seem a bit contrived when bands kind of go on the sort of like press circuit, for lack of a better term, an album coming out, to shout about it and say it's the best thing we've ever done and all this and stuff. But I really love it. I listen to it all the time, and it does feel weird that it's coming out because we have sat on it for so long. And I was just saying the other day, actually, there's a really nice kind of unexpected charm about this period in the cycle where, or a bit earlier in the cycle, where you have this record that you're sitting on that no one's heard yet, and you know what to expect, and it feels like your little secret in a weird way. And I'll miss that a little bit, but I am really, really excited to release it. It does sort of feel like the culmination of a big chapter of our lives. So I wonder how I'll feel, you know, in a year's time, say, once we've like toured most of the major places that we tour, and it's been out for a minute and people have kind of like listened to it a bunch. And yeah, I wonder how that'll feel. Because I think in the past we've been so like, go on to the next thing. We're touring constantly, and then in between any tour that we have, we're making a record. So I think we've tried to slow things down a bit when making this album, and I think I'm trying to enjoy the moment more in the process, and I'm trying to kind of like look at things a bit more kind of objectively rather than just being on to the next thing, you know?
Yeah.
Savor it.
I'm one of the lucky people that has heard the album in full already. Fair to say that this double release, but even more so this new one, Boston Manor has matured in more ways than one.
Oh yeah, definitely mentally. But no, thank you. Yeah, for sure. I think I've heard that a few times recently, which is really nice to hear. I think, yeah, you know, we depending on how you view this as like half of one album or an album in its own right, it's kind of our fifth record, you know. We've been a band.
Yeah, so you tell us, like, how should we look at it?
Okay, yeah, cool. I don't know. I haven't really decided. I think I guess it kind of is the fifth record, because I do consider Datura to be an album. But yeah, they come together as like twin albums or a double album, if you will. So yeah, I suppose it would be our fifth record, and we've been making music together for a long time now, and we've had the privilege of being able to release quite a lot of music in a short space of time. So I think, you should be maturing as a band if you're doing that and changing. And I certainly don't want to make the same record twice, but I think I feel a lot older than I did when the pandemic started. I definitely do. So in a good way and in a bad way. But I think it means that, I think I'd like to be a more mature band now. Do you know what I mean? We played a festival last week, and we played 2 sets. So we played like a sort of like, not a secret set, but they kind of had like a pre-day at this festival, and we had like this sort of pre-day. And we played a bunch of like songs off the first album just to make it like its own little fun thing. And it was really fun. And we haven't played those songs in, 6 years, some of them, maybe even longer. But I definitely felt weird playing him. I enjoyed it, but it was definitely kind of like, well, this is definitely a different kind of band that wrote these songs.
Right.
It felt like wearing your kind of clothes from high school or something. You know what I mean? It was kind of not uncomfortable. It was loads of fun, but it was definitely like, I think personally we've matured for the better, and the music that we're making right now it feels very natural for us, and it doesn't feel we don't I don't know, I think it suits us. It feels like it does anyway, in a good way. I don't feel stupid on stage playing them, which is a good sign.
yeah. Does that mean that what you're just talking about now, like if you look ahead and there's a bunch of shows announced and you're going to be extremely busy for the remainder of this year, should we then also kind of expect you guys to formally to break from those early days more? And like, if we're going to see you play in the immediate future, is that set basically going to be the new album and the previous album, and that's that? Like should we expect you guys to really embrace this new stage of your career?
Yes and no. I think we'll always play stuff off like most of our previous albums. I don't know that we'll play a lot of stuff off Be Nothing much anymore, maybe like once in a blue moon. To me, I've always sort of felt like the kind of gear change that we did after that first record was like a real significant one, where we kind of found what we wanted to sound like. Right. And I feel like every release after that has been in the same sort of canon, for lack of a better term. I feel like we've matured, but it all kind of fits together as it sounds like the same band kind of thing. So we still play stuff off Welcome to the Neighborhood, we still play stuff off Glue, but on this next touring cycle we will be playing quite a lot of new stuff, because we're excited about it. But we'll always make sure that we play singles off previous records, and there's stuff in there that if you haven't really checked the record out yet, the new one, that you'll know loads of music that we're playing. At the end of the day, you've paid money, and if you like our band and you like previous songs, like, you deserve to be able to hear them. It's not I don't like it when you go and watch a band be super duper self-indulgent. I think there needs to be like a bit of a fine balance there, providing a service at the end of the day, at least in a live capacity. But yeah, I think and again, for people that, if you are listening to this podcast and you love our like first album, well, I'm sure we'll play very occasionally like stuff off it, but it's not going to be a regular feature. And to be fair, it hasn't been for quite a long time now.
Yeah. I remember from our conversation at Grass Pop that you and your brother were telling me that. Well,
it's Dan's. So the 2 brothers in the band, but I'm not one.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, you're right. My apologies.
But he is one of the brothers, the dude.
So you and Dan were talking about that with Grass Pop coming up, being a metal festival first and foremost, that you guys did kind of like shuffle around your set list to have a heavier set, because you guys can go so many different ways, because your sound is pretty eclectic. Does that mean that is this a muscle you keep up? Like, can the band kind of knowing like, oh, we're gonna play for this crowd, or we're gonna be on this bill for this stop, or we're going through a festival during our headline run? Do you guys mix and match it up that easily? Is that something that you maintain, that you can say, tonight we're going to play a heavier set, tomorrow we're going to be a little bit more, calmer?
Yeah, yes and no. I think for if it's like a tour, we'll tend now. We used to change it up nightly, which was very stressful for people like our lighting designer and stuff like that. But now, if we do like a tour, we tend to try to lock in the set list and what we're doing for that tour for the whole thing. If there's something that night one that goes like that really doesn't work, if there's like say there's like a crazy guitar change sequence that means that there's like big gaps, or if there's like a song that just really doesn't sort of hit a chord with the crowd, then maybe we'll kind of reappraise things after that first show. But generally speaking, we lock things in. But when we're doing festivals, so when you saw us at Grass Pop, we were just out in Europe doing festivals. I think there was like a couple of shows, but it was mostly just like there was a festival. And yeah, we changed things around all the time, because we would do stuff like Hurricane in Southside, which was much more aimed at like, I guess, more kind of mainstream, so to speak. You have like big pop acts headlining that, whereas stuff like Grass Pop obviously is like people want heavy shit, so we tried to cater to that and play more heavy stuff, and we tried to be flexible. I think a lot of people have lost that now with technology, and I mean everyone's
big stage productions also,
it's all pretty. I mean, and it's hard if you're like an arena act like Bring Me the Horizon. You can't just be like wheeling things on the fly. Everything is so like, it's such a show that is put together, But a band at our level, where we don't have like a sort of pre-programmed set that is just like you press play at the start and then it runs until the end of the set. We are able to kind of like change the pace of the set based on how it's going. If we're rushing through the songs a bit, we can kind of slow things down, things like that. We try to retain a little bit of like flexibility, because we can do that, and we play like amps and stuff. So we kind of like the idea that, well, we always used to say we could play a pub or we could open for an arena band if like our setup and the kind of band that we are would allow us to do that. It's been a while since I played a pub. I don't know how that would go these days, but I like to think we'd still pull it off. But yeah, that's also, I should say, that's not to shit on people that do have more complicated setups, because I think that is great and yields like a really like cool result. It's just a different style, we like the kind of room for maneuverability in what we do, in terms of sets and stuff. But who knows, if the Foo Fighters tap us up tomorrow to go on tour, then maybe we'll have to be a little bit more tight with what we do. But I enjoy that as well, because if you do a big cycle where you've got like back-to-back touring, you're doing the same set all the way through, it gets a little bit mechanical towards the end, and which we've done before, and you kind of like, oh god, it just feels like you're kind of on autopilot. Whereas every now and again, if you can change it up, it kind of keeps you on your toes a bit.
The influences that we do see on this album that are maybe a little bit more profound than before. Like when I listen to the full album, from start to finish, we hear a bunch of stuff from the Beatles to the Deftones. Is that we already said that your sound, people that know you guys know that your sound is eclectic, and that people shouldn't really have too many expectations or assumptions when they listen to a new album for the first time. But as you're writing this music over a long period of time, by allowing yourself that variety, if you will, like how hard is it for you guys as the artists to make sure your album stays, a unit, a cohesion, if you will, versus here's a collection of songs we wrote. Like how hard is that balance when you want to allow yourself all those, that variety of influences?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. And I think we've tried to keep that at the forefront of our minds a lot, and we've not always got it right. For instance, on Glue, we try a lot of like things on that. We try and be quite ambitious with different sounds that we bring in, and it doesn't always work. It can seem a little, not all over the place, maybe all over the place, but really, really varied and not necessarily as cohesive. But for these two albums, because they were so kind of conceptual, and we knew that we were going to make them in this way. So before we started even making the first part, Datura, we knew that there was going to be Sundiver. It was going to have this yin and yang, night and day thing, and there was going to be this kind of journey that flowed throughout it. We wanted to kind of make sure that it wasn't boring, or that it kind of ebbs and flows and goes places, but that it is cohesive. And I think all of that, particularly on Sundiver, is in the guitar sound, which I absolutely can't claim any credit for. The guys worked so hard on crafting this really specific tone and the specific sound. The thing that we talked about a lot is we wanted the album to sound like, you know, on a really hot day when you look down the street and you can see like the horizon's kind of like wavy. We kind of wanted it to feel like that. So not like happy, but kind of bright and like sun bleached, you know what I mean? So even when the songs on the record, some songs on the record are a bit darker or a bit more kind of like downbeat, and then there's some stuff that's like really explosive and kind of like obvious. We kind of wanted to have this kind of through line through it that was going to sort of tie it together. And the guitar itself, I think, does that. On Datura, there's so much kind of like synth stuff and programming, which I love because it gives it that kind of nightimey, clubby feel as well. But on this, we decided to strip all that back and really make it about the guitar. And I think that gives it a bit of an anchor when we are being a little bit left field or more poppy or whatever you want to call it, you know, because it definitely does try and do different things. But I think I don't know if we've got it right, but we've definitely tried to make this record feel like one thing.
Yeah. It's almost like, for me, the way, because you can get lost in like dissecting lyrics and what are the themes and look at an album from that perspective. You can go very technical into the music and looking at the tones and the themes there and what are the emotions that are bringing. For me, from an purely like experiential or atmospheric perspective, it feels like the previous album was that like going through a moment of anxiety and having a big questions, and this album kind of feels like, to me at least as a listener, kind of accepting with or being okay with where I am, and that doesn't necessarily means that everything is rainbows, lollipops, and sunshine. It can be a little darker, but I feel okay about it in a way. Does that make sense to you?
You absolutely hit the nail on the head. That's literally what it is. Yeah, 100%. That's great that's translated. I mean, yeah, Datura was a dark time. It was quite literal in the sense that a lot of it was written in COVID and lockdown and stuff. The music before even the beginnings of the concept, you know, this came to be the first kind of demos they were moodier sound. It all kind of tied together in this kind of thing. And then we went back out on tour. A bunch of us were like drinking loads and kind of not taking very good care of ourselves. And it kind of, none of us hit this like kind of rock bottom moment. Like we weren't like complete drunks or anything, but we were certainly just like not doing great at certain points, touring a lot. And then we had a bit of time when we made this record, and we took like a whole year off to make it. You know, I had a kid, so did our drummer. We got married before, not me and my drummer, me and my wife got married.
I know that.
Got married right after Datura came, a bit after Datura came out. So there's a lot of life stuff that happened, and you know, we're all doing really great now. You know, we don't get really drunk all the time, which is great. We have a lot more kind of a good like work-life balance, and even the making of the record was way more chilled and relaxed. We did it at a slow pace, and we just focused on making it really great. And I think everyone is a lot healthier now. And I think I hate talking about COVID and lockdown because it just sounds so boring now because everyone discussed it to death. People do forget, like, it was the anxiety of that time.
Oh, 100%.
So potent, you know. And I think even though, you know, Datura was made towards the end of the lockdown, it was really kind of a contributing factor to the whole vibe of the record, and just the kind of like claustrophobia of it all. And then, yeah, obviously this is the opposite of that. So it's all part and parcel, you know. I mean, there's elements of this record and the last one that are really personal to me, and there's stuff that is much less personal, and it's a lot much more just kind of emotive and atmospheric and thematic. You know, I mean, some of the best songs on this record, I think, lyrically aren't really even about me per se. Just about the scrap feeling, and I feel a lot closer to the other guys creatively for doing that in a way, because I think sometimes if you're a singer that doesn't play an instrument in the band, there can feel like a real sort of like bit of a disconnect. You know, you're over here doing your contribution and they're over there doing theirs, but this felt so kind of collaborative. I mean, all five of us write, so it's always collaborative, but it felt very kind of the lines were really blurred between who was doing what, which was really good. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. Just to wrap us up with a different question, like, how weird of a mindfuck does it remain that Australia likes you so much and streams you so much? Germany as well, which is great because it's probably the biggest rock market besides the US at this point. Do you guys sometimes go like, wasn't expecting after all these years to be this big in Australia?
Totally, yeah. I'm so frequently pleasantly surprised by places that we go for the first time. You know, we're still having firsts now, which is really nice. We've got a lot more firsts next year. And you go a place and you're like, okay, cool. And Australia, this will be our third time going, and both of the two times were so brilliant. I had such a wonderful time, and we've toured with a lot of Australian bands, which I think has helped us in the US and in the UK. We have a lot of friends over there, and we've always really loved it. But I don't know. I think Australia is always quite liked as a band. We're from a bit of a weird part of the UK that's a bit, I suppose, if you're looking at like the zeitgeist of music and sort of like culture and shit that comes out of the UK, we're a little bit, it's a bit of a black spot at times, and that's not to kind of shit on where we're from, because I think it's amazing and loads of great stuff comes out of it. But there's not like for instance, if I live in Manchester now, but if I was starting my first band in Manchester, I mean, how many Manchester bands can you point to? Do you know what I mean? Like, but from where we're from, there's, you know, we kind of had to like really get out there and shout and wave our flags around a lot to get people to pay attention to us in the beginning. And I think Australia, in a way, has that with the rest of the world, and you know, they really have to work their asses off to be able to get anyone from like the US and the UK to pay attention, because those are big scenes in of themselves, and it's just so hard to get out there and expensive. So I also think they're super appreciative when they see, you know, a band come so far that isn't this arena effort. Loading in the gear themselves and coming and playing shows over there. So I think they sort of see a bit of that in us. So or, you know, they like what they like. So but yeah, I love going over there so much. I'm really excited about this trip. And and we're going to be going back again, I think, and hopefully in 2025. So I want to be going to these places more often for sure. And so it's not just Germany, the UK, and America as it has been in the past. You know, not that I don't places too.
Of course. Well, and I hope that with that next US tour, you add some Canadian dates so that we get to see you here in Toronto.
I would love that.
Henry, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. This is the quiet before the storm, so I hope you get to enjoy that, you know, little gem that you're sitting on for a little longer before you have to share it with everybody. And then hopefully it's super exciting also to see all the fans react and share with you, back to you, what everything means to them, whether or not you envision it that way or not. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it, and I hope to see you on the road again soon.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed it. Cheers.
You are awesome for watching this video. Click right here to see more content like it and subscribe to the channel.